Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Reagan and this is my channel, Ray Ray Reads, and today I'm going to be doing a Kindle Unlimited book recommendation video. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, I am in a new setting. This is actually what's usually behind me or behind the camera. My bookshelf is like right here to the left of me, but I'm filming much later in the day today, so the sun is actually coming from the window that's usually behind me. So I had to kind of switch it up. I hope you guys don't totally mind, but this is just gonna be the setting for today, you know? Maybe it's nice, maybe it's better. Also, I did adjust some settings on my camera so that the lighting is a little bit better, so hopefully this still looks good because I usually just record on auto, so it like fixes that stuff for me, but we're gonna do like the, you know, manual this time. Let's go ahead and get into the video because I'm really excited about this. Go ahead and grab your Kindy, your little Kindle baby. Get her out. Mine's old as dirt. It's really dusty. Love that. I have a really old Kindle. Like, I'm surprised this thing is still kicking, but it is. It's so old, it literally has a keyboard. So I actually don't read a ton on my Kindle anymore. A lot of times I find myself reading on my Kindle more in the summer because when I'm outside in the sun, tanning, or at the beach, it's a great way to read because it has that paper white feature. So the sun shining on it actually makes it brighter. Whereas if I try to read on my Kindle app on my phone, I can't see anything. So get out your Kindle or get out your phone and get ready to write down these book titles because seriously, you're gonna want them. Also, I will say most of these are either dark romance or taboo, so keep that in mind as you go into them. I'm gonna tell you guys all the synopses of the books, but just go into it knowing that a lot of books that I read are like steamy or dark or taboo, so just keep that in mind. So the very first book that I wanna talk about today is actually one that I read very recently, and if you watched my reading vlog from this past week, you'll know what I'm about to say, and that is Stolen Soulmate by Mary Catherine Gebhard. I hope that's how you say her last name. So this book is about a girl named Story and a guy named Grayson Crown. And Grayson Crown is the only boy of this family who's like this elite family. They own like Crown Industries. They basically own like the entire town. His grandfather is like running everything. They have like arranged marriages, like think like royals, but like in today's time. And if it was still messed up, like there was arranged marriages, you just had to like know that you were basically just like an economic proposition because, you know, we want this industry to be with this industry. Anyways, long story short, Grayson is basically the heir to the Crown Industries, which his grandfather runs and owns because his father has previously passed away. So Grayson is the heir to this industry and he is arranged to marry a girl named Lottie. And he actually really loves Lottie. So it's like, you know, yay, excited, go him, because he actually gets to marry someone he loves. But one day he is in this like hall closet at Crown Point where he lives, like this huge estate, and he reaches out in the hallway and pulls in this girl thinking that it's Lottie, and he starts like kissing her and they like start, you know, getting it on in this closet, and all of a sudden he like whispers a secret to her that he is a virgin, and she's like,
what the heck, like what's going on?
And the girl that he pulled into the closet was Story, a maid at the Crown Point estate, whatever the heck it's called. So she is like the lowest of the low. She's a maid, and all of a sudden Lottie walks in, turns on the light, and is like, are you kidding me, Grayson? Like, how could you do this? I knew you were gonna do something like this. Like, I can't believe you. And she storms off. So Grayson's like, looks at the maid and he's like, I hate you and you're gonna pay for this. And so he takes her as his own personal maid, and she like sleeps in his wing and she like has to do all these things for him. Anyways, this sparks a sort of relationship between the two of them. And when I tell you guys, this book is so good. Also, you might notice on Goodreads that this is the second book in a series. I would just say go ahead and disregard the first book. You could read it. I haven't read it yet. I don't really think I'm going to. That actually follows Grayson's sister. It's her story, but the second book, Stolen Soulmate, actually feels like the first book. So you could go ahead and start with Stolen Soulmate, and then there's a second book after Stolen Soulmate, which is technically the third, and it's called Forbidden Destiny. And then there's a third book, which is technically the fourth, called Destroyed Destiny. All three of these books follow Grayson and Story's storyline. So you are gonna wanna know that going into it, that this isn't a standalone book. Stolen Soulmate continues on through Forbidden Fate and Destroyed Destiny. Oh my gosh, it's like a tongue twister trying to say these names. So they do continue on. So the first book is about his sister Abigail, and then the second, third, fourth book are about Story and Grayson. So I feel like, for me, it feels like the first book was like the preface, like the beginning, and then this is like where the story was meant to be the whole time. So I don't know if I'll ever go back and read the first one. I don't think I really care to read about Abigail. So anyways, this series is seriously so good. It's so angsty, and it's just really problematic because he is arranged to be married to Lottie, and you know, he starts catching feelings for Story, and things just go really downhill from there. This book does have one of my least favorite tropes, but I loved it anyways. I gave all 3 books 5 stars. I had the best time reading these. I just like ate them up, like one after the other. I sucked them down. They were so good. So definitely jump into this one. Be aware of trigger warnings. There are definitely, I think, like sexual assault, all kinds of things. So please make sure to check trigger warnings before you jump into this book, but man, it is phenomenal. The next book I have for you guys is one that I don't talk about often enough on my channel, but I really, really enjoyed it, and that is On the Way to You by Candy Steiner. This is a romance between, I actually don't know their names, let me look it up. So this book follows a girl named Cooper and Emery, and Cooper lives in a really tough home life situation, and she has like no money, and she has a desire to move away when she graduates from high school, and or maybe college. I think she's like college age. It's been a year since I've read this, so it's not super fresh in my mind. But one day she's working at the diner that she's been working at for years, and she has plans to eventually leave, but not for a few months. And a guy named Cooper walks in and basically asks her, are you happy? Or like, what makes you happy? And she's like totally just confused, because she's like, first of all, you're a stranger, and why are you asking me this? But she can't stop thinking about his question. And so they get started talking, and they just kind of open up to each other, and he's like, I'm on the way to halfway across the country. Do you want to ride with me and go with me? And so she picks up her life in like a couple hours and throws a suitcase in the back of this guy's car, and they take off on this cross-country journey going from the East Coast to the West Coast, and it's just about their journey along the way. And I have chills thinking about it, because it is just so good. There's so many things in this book that aren't talked about enough. Emery actually deals with depression and anxiety, and you see him throughout his trip experiencing, you know, seasons of this anxiety and depression and what it looks like on a day-to-day basis. And it was just so real and raw, and it felt very, I could see myself in Emery. As someone who has struggled with depression, this was very close to my heart, because I could see myself in him, and it was just such a great representation of depression and anxiety. And then Cooper actually has a prosthetic leg, and that's something that she has to deal with throughout the story as well. And this story is just such a beautiful, heartwarming story about forgiving others, forgiving yourself, and trying to move on. And oh man, guys, it's so good. It's so good. You just need to read it. I loved it so much, and it just talks about things that aren't talked about enough in books, and so that's why I loved it so much. So please make sure to check out On the Way to You. The next book I have for you guys is To Love Jasonthorne by Ella Mays. This is a book that follows a girl named Olive who grows up with a crush on her brother's best friend her whole life. So this is definitely a brother's best friend trope book, and she always has a crush on him growing up. Then one day he has to move away when he's like a teenager or something, because his parents pass away or something. I don't remember the circumstances, but he has to move in with his uncle who lives in California. So he moves across the country to California, moves in with his uncle, and years go by, and our main character Olive is now graduating from college and still like kind of pining after Jason. And while he's been away in California, he's actually become an actor. So he's this famous actor, and Olive is back home, and she's actually writing a book, and the book is kind of about their love story, if they ever had one. And the main character, the guy that she's writing about, he is basically based off of Jasonthorne, her crush as a child. And so she ends up getting a movie deal for it, and she goes into the interview to like talk about casting, and they bring in her longtime crush from her childhood, Jasonthorne, and they want him to play the character from her book who's basically based off of Jasonthorne. And it is so cute. They kind of run into each other, and she's so embarrassed, and he's like, like, Olive, like, what the heck are you doing here? He didn't realize that it was her. Anyways, that kind of kickstarts their romance, and it is so good. And if you like a celebrity trope, this is definitely a good one because there is scenes where they have to like run from the paparazzi, and she has to struggle with like not wanting to be in the public eye so much and not being used to that. So this is definitely cool if you like that celebrity trope, but this one is so good and definitely a favorite of mine. The next book that I have for you guys is The Butterfly Project by Emma Scott. This book follows a girl named Zelda and a guy named Beckett, and Zelda experiences something horrific when she is a child, and growing up she has to deal with the effects of witnessing that and what it does to her mentally and physically. And she kind of lives her life, and we pick up when she is writing a graphic novel and she's trying to pitch it to different publishing companies, and they're all like denying her. And she's in New York and she's trying to make her start, but she knows that she's not going to make it. So she decides that she's going to go back home to, I think Nevada is where she's from. But on the night before she's like deciding to leave, she runs into Beckett, and he is, I don't remember how or where they met, but they run into each other in downtown New York, and they kind of just get started talking, and they just start opening up to each other. And he basically convinces her to stay and move in with him as his roommate. But he is actually a criminal, or was a criminal. He went to jail for a few years, I think, and he is dealing with the effects of that. So he has like a parole officer and all those things. So he has a lot going on mentally as well. And so the two of them just kind of come together, and they just have to figure out how to do life together while he is on parole and she's trying to be a struggling author in New York City. So this book, it just has such like cozy winter vibes, and it's also really sweet and sentimental. So it's definitely one of my favorites to pick up, but I really enjoyed this one. It was kind of emotional, kind of sweet, kind of steamy. There was a little bit of everything. So if that sounds at all enticing to you, I would definitely pick this one up. The last book that I have for you guys is Don't Kiss the Bride by Carrie and Cole. And I just actually read this book very recently. Like I just finished it 2 days ago. So it's very fresh on my mind, except I've already forgotten the characters' names. So this book follows a girl named Skylar and a guy named Jude. And Skylar actually lives a very hard and terrible home life. She has a lot of mental illness, a lot of physical illness, a lot of things that she's struggling with because of this home life that she's experienced her whole life. So one day she whips into her high school, getting ready for the first day of school for her senior year. And across the street, there is a construction site going on for this house. There's a construction company that's over there. And there is a gentleman over there by the name of Jude, who is a strappy 32-year-old man. Actually, I think he's 34. And he sees her and he's like, whoa, she's so cool. Like she's driving this Corvette, she's blasting this 80s music. Like he's just really like intrigued by her, but he like moves on. Well, later that day, her car won't start when she's trying to leave the school. So he comes over to help her, and he doesn't get her car started. So he's like calling the tow truck, and he offers her a ride home. So he takes her home, and they keep accidentally meeting and like running into each other. They start running into each other quite often, and he basically discovers that she's living a very terrible life at home. And so he wants to help her in any way he can. And one of those ways is by having a marriage of convenience. So they get married for purposes that I don't want to share because it's not a spoiler, but I want you guys to be able to read it and enjoy it. So they have to get married to kind of help her with this mental illness and physical illness that she's struggling with. And it's so good. I will say I ended up giving the book 4 stars just because the very, very end felt a little bit flat for me. Like the problems of like the age gap just became like a little annoying. After a while, Jude really struggles with the fact that he is really older than her as they start developing feelings for each other. And so he really struggles with that. And she's like, boy, bye. I'm like over that. I've been over that, you know? So I think that was the only grievance I had with it, is that he really struggled with it for like way too long. But it was a really, really good story, and the tension was really good. Oh, it was so good the whole time. And I loved watching Skylar come out of her shell and grow as a person. And this is something I've never really read about before. So it was very interesting to read about and learn something new, which is why I love books. So this one was also really great, and you should pick it up if that sounds interesting to you. All right, guys, that is all of the books that I have for you today. Can't give away all my Kindle Unlimited secrets because I'm sure we'll have another one of these videos sometime soon as I read more Kindle Unlimited books and as I make more videos. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel down below. You can also click on the description box down below underneath this video to get links to all of my social media and my Amazon wish list if you wish to support me there. Other than that, I love you guys so much, much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
She's a Mona Lisa. Everyone's lining up to see her. There must be something bad